Welcome back to this episode of The Spirit Inside. Today's episode, I'm going to be looking at the original Chee-nahr. Previously, I looked at the Chee-nahr 70, and today we're going to be checking out the original, and I'm not going to redo the entire history, so if there seems like there's information missing, it's probably in the original Chee-nahr episode I did with the Chee-nahr 70. Go check that out. I'll put a link in the description below. But in the meantime, like, share, subscribe, feed that algorithm before the AI takes over us. But with that, let's get into the main part of the episode. Chee-nahr is made by the Campari group in Italy. Unlike the stronger version that came out in the 2010s, the original Chee-nahr is 33 proof at 16.5% alcohol by volume. And the Chee-nahr 70 that I reviewed previously, that's 35% alcohol by volume at 70 proof, hence the name Chee-nahr 70. So like I said, I'm not going to go and rehash all the history that I've covered already before in the Chee-nahr 70 episode. There'll be in the link for you to check that out. But I do want to give just a little bit of some of the early history just for context. The original Chee-nahr was created in 1952 by businessman and philanthropist Angelo Dalle Molle. Its initial success is credited to its advertising campaign. In a series of TV commercials starring a famous Italian actor named Ernesto Calindri, the idea was to attach Chee-nahr to famous top Italian actor to draw people in. And it worked. It gave Chee-nahr a good start, a good boost to rising up and become a very popular drink in Italy initially. That advertising campaign strategy reminds me of the episode I just recently did with Galliano. That is also an Italian product created by an Italian, and he had similar ideas to attach his product to another famous Italian to sort of give it a bump in popularity and get it noticed. And in that case, that also worked. So those clever Italians, they know what they're doing. So while most of the history for Chee-nahr gets credit to Angelo, there's also his two brothers, Amadeo and Mario Dalle Molle as well. They were also part of the process. And there's also someone named Rino Dondi Pinton was also involved in the development of Chee-nahr. Some of the history says Amadeo and Mario, they also helped Angelo as far as experimenting with the leaves of the artichoke. And in scientific terms, the leaves are called bracts. So then the question is, how does Rino fit into the story? And this is what I figured out, just to summarize it really quickly. Sure, Angelo gets, all the glory in the headlines, but if you watch my first Chee-nahr video, you know that Angelo is more of a businessman and a philanthropist. And so, he started Chee-nahr kind of later in his life. Then the question is, how does a businessman and philanthropist create Chee-nahr? Does he also have a background in liquor distillation, or does he know chemistry and all that? Well, no, because that's where Rino comes in. While all those men were involved in it, probably the real one who deserves more of the credit is Rino as the real source for being the real creator of Chee-nahr. So then what is the history of Rino, since he's probably more the real creator of Chee-nahr, the original Chee-nahr? In his youth, he was the manager of Padù Distillery, GB Pezzoli, or Pezzoli? Pezzoli, yeah, GB Pezzoli. We'll go with that. The name comes from the region of the same name, Padù. In 1935, Angelo, being the businessman and entrepreneur that he was, he bought that distillery that Rino worked at. Now remember, the creation date for Chee-nahr across multiple sources is always 1952. So that's quite a gap between 1935, when Angelo bought the Padù distillery, and the creation of Chee-nahr. So then what's the true history there? Now luckily, Rino has a son named Giovanni Dondi Pinton that he left his business to. And then that son did an interview about his dad, Rino. Now, unfortunately, the reason why Giovanni was doing this interview is because his father, Rino, had passed away. And he passed away fairly recently. He passed away on March 1st, 2022 at the age of 103. So in honor of Rino, for this history section, we're going to tell his part of the creation of Chee-nahr. As I stated, Rino was the manager of the Padù distillery when Angelo bought it. Rino was only 27 years old when he invented Chee-nahr. This was after World War II, and Rino was wanting to do something to help Italy recover from the war, and he also wanted to do something that was health focused. That health focus is why artichoke became like the focal and main ingredient for Chee-nahr, because artichoke have all these sort of health benefits. So this was the time where people felt like liqueurs were also just medicine, not just an alcoholic drink you could enjoy. And this is a time where there was actual Coke and Coca-Cola, where morphine and heroin were readily available in commercially available products. And this is all before society learned of the negative and addictive downsides. So as Rino was developing Chee-nahr, he would do taste testing in local bars and taverns, and he would just have handwritten notes and books to jot down people's feedback and get ideas for how to improve it. Eventually over time, this is what's led to the original final recipe for Chee-nahr. So you can imagine that having the original recipe for Chee-nahr is just written down in one of these notebooks that he had. And what's extraordinary about that is that Rino only had a 3rd grade level education. You know, Rino had a very humbling upbringing according to his son. He grew up sleeping on a mattress filled with corn cobs. And according to Giovanni, Rino was just a man who liked to work and be busy. So then the question is, why did Angelo become the focus over Rino and even over his own brothers as part of the Chee-nahr story? You know, I didn't find or see any ill intentions that would explain that. What I figured out is that when it comes to the history of Chee-nahr, Angelo's part of the history just travels farther across the globe, because you can find his part of the history not just locally in Italian, but in English and other languages all across the globe. Once I figured out who Rino was and discovered his part of the story in Chee-nahr, they were all just in Italian. I couldn't find anything in English or even any other language. They're all Italian sources, so I had to get them translated and read them that way. And I think that's part of this distinction is why Angelo's part of Chee-nahr's history is more widely known than Rino's. And you have to remember that Angelo was the businessman, the money man, and the owner of the distillery. So technically, he's the owner of the formula for Chee-nahr, even though Rino's the one who created it. So Angelo just being the face of Chee-nahr and promoting it and being the boss, his part of the story just got elevated. And this being, you know, before modern technology, age of social media and the internet, his part of the story just took over and just kind of became the focus of the brand. You know, even now, especially back then, I think for the media, it was just easier to focus on one person and tell a story of Chee-nahr through one lead person, in this case, Angelo. But through all this research, I didn't find any bad blood or anything like that. Like, there was no animosity for Angelo being the main person in the story of Chee-nahr from at least Rino's perspective. In fact, Rino's son Giovanni described him as a man who didn't like to talk badly of people. He was a man with no desire for revenge, and he always had a sort of a courteous way about him. It was said that he almost never clashed with people, and he tried to have respect for the people that he met. And I think having Angelo being the main focus was fine with Rino. I think that just suited him. Another thing that Giovanni mentioned about his father was that even though Rino was a businessman himself and he traveled all over the world, he always made a connection with Padoue. He always came home back to Padoue. So even though Angelo is more well known and gets more of the spotlight worldwide, back home, Rino is well respected, and the Italian press gave him his due when he passed. So yes, Angelo is obviously very important because of his position as the boss and as the businessman. But in today's episode, let's honor Rino's part in the history of Chee-nahr. And so with that, let's head into the review. All right, let's start the review with the design of the bottle and the packaging. Right off the bat, I really like it. I've always liked the combination of red and black. Just always looks cool, especially this kind of darker shade of red. And I do like the way the green kind of just pops. Pretty standard bottle, but there's just something kind of appealing to me with that color combination. It's got a little bit of a gold trim there. It's just something that's kind of cool to me as far as the design of the bottle. That's just a screw cap, so that's easy. So I think on the look, because as a little kid, I always kind of liked that combination. I'm gonna give that a 5. So then on aroma, okay, now it's coming back to me. So, you know, in the bottle, it's a little bit more concentrated, but gotta admit, I kind of forgot what the Cynar 70 smelled at exactly. I remember it was being earthy, but beyond that, I couldn't remember, and then now it's all coming back to me. Yeah, it's got that earthy kind of vegetable smell, but also kind of have that almost a chocolatey kind of smell to it. But before we make a final judgment on the smell, let's pour it out and do it from the shot here. go. Almost has a sweeter smell than I remember. It's kind of a chocolatey caramel, earthy, kind of vegetable root kind of smell. A little bit of medicinal smell like too. Yeah, it is very appealing. I'd say that's an easy 4.5, just because there is some kind of bit of bitterness that I think come from the vegetable smell. That's not terrible, but it's a little bit off-putting, but it's not that bad. Got some shots here I'll show you of the oil, because I've been trying to figure out how to do that. I think I have a good idea of how to show you that. And this one is definitely got a thick layer of oil that sticks to the glass there. So yeah, 4.5 on the aroma though. And then the appearance itself, in the bottle it's just almost looks pure jet black. Even if I look down the bottle itself, I notice now that I poured some of it out is actually a tint of green. It's not a clear bottle. But we'll judge most of how it looks here, and yeah, it looks fine. It almost kind of looks like coffee. Shade of coffee that doesn't have milk or any sugar or anything like that. Yeah, it's fine. I'll give that a solid 4. So next we'll do the flavor, and then obviously the mouthfeel will kind of go along with that. It does remind me a lot of the Chee-nahr 70 that I did a while back. But I do think it's a little bit more distinctive. It definitely seems a tad sweeter from what I can remember. I remember the Cynar 70 being particularly sweet. I'm sure there was some sweetness to it, but this seems to be a little bit more noticeable. Comes in very soft sweetness. Reminds me more of like a chocolatey type sweetness, not a fruity sweetness. And then hits the back of the palate. There's some bitterness there, like vegetable bitterness. It's unique. A lot of people drink this to settle their stomach as they're eating or after. I do like it though. I think I might have to review my previous video, but I think I like this more than actually Cynar 70. The only thing is that bitterness really sticks to the back of your throat and your palate there. So for the flavor though, I'm gonna give it a solid 4. But the mouthfeel, how it's kind of, the aftertaste and how it kind of interacts in your mouth, I'm gonna have to ding that a little bit more. I was gonna say 3.5, but that last one really also, it's not a terrible experience, but it just lingers on too much, especially the bitterness and the medicinal quality. If it just came and went, it wouldn't bother me so much, but it's just hanging around a little bit too much. I'm gonna actually give that a 3. Now for the buzz factor, since I have some experience with this, I don't even remember the Cynar 70 being really that particularly potent. And this is, the original one is not even that strong. And yeah, it's, as far as, buzz strength, like I always say here, the buzz factor scores neither good nor bad. It's just where I think how strong and how quickly and kind of how, I guess, fierce a buzz it can give you, or it can be sustained. This seems like it would take forever to get a buzz off on its own anyway, so I'm going to give this a 2. Remember, 2 is not necessarily a bad thing. So doing some quick math off camera, it comes out to a 3.75. That's a respectable score. You just have to remember that while this is something you can enjoy on your own, it's usually, just drink a sip to, like I said, people use it to settle their stomach after a big meal or anything like that. I really think that maybe the Chee-nahr is gonna do better in a mix, so let's head into the mix section. So here we are in the mix section, and I'm gonna make something called a Cynar Julep. And one of the first things we wanna do is just gonna go through our ingredients and equipment and all that. Ingredients wise, of course, we got the Chee-nahr. We need grapefruit juice and simple syrup, lemon juice, club soda with an asterisk, I'll get to that in a bit, and the bitters here. And We're gonna need mint, because it's julep. Also ice, crushed ice to be specific. And then we're also got a shaker here, something to measure things out in, a muddler for the mint, and then a strainer for the shaker. So the first thing to do to make this work is we're gonna need some mint, and we're going to muddle it. Now I'm gonna attempt to show this on camera. Not exactly the best at this, but I think the idea to get from this is that you're putting this in our glass, and we want to use the muddler, and we're not trying to shred it or tear it apart. We just want to, as what I read was just kind of gently bruise it. You know, obviously the idea is just that's going to release the oils and give it an aromatic scent, as well as affect the profile of the taste as well. It's just like that, nothing crazy. If you do it too hard and rip it around, rip the leaves apart and everything like that, it releases a different kind of chemical. I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but it's not desirable. So here I'm going to mention that I got this mix from a website called Vine Pair. I have a link in the description area for you for that. But I also went back and used Steve the Bartender's video as a reference. And you'll see that between Vine Pair's version on their website and how Steve the Bartender does it, there's a lot of overlap, but there are some differences. Mine is kind of a hybriding of the two. For instance, in the Vine Pair one, you don't even use a shaker. Everything just goes in the glass and is done in the glass. Steve the Bartender does use a shaker, and I'm going to go with that just because I want to chill it a little bit before we put it or pour it over the ice. And to be honest with you, I've got this new shaker with the strainer finally, and I'm kind of itching to use it. So that's the reason why that's there. And there are other minor things. And Steve the Bartender's, he doesn't have soda water of any kind, and neither do I, unfortunately. The Vine Pair website version does say to use soda water. You know what? It's harder to find that than you think. And there's a difference between soda water, as the recipe from Vine Pair suggests, club soda, sparkling water, and tonic water. They're all distinctly different. But the two that are most interchangeable is soda water and club soda. Soda water is just basically water that's carbonated. That's it, nothing else. Club soda is carbonated, and it has like other stuff in it, some minerals and things that just give it a little more of a mineral flavor. But as I was trying to find this soda water and not being able to find it and doing some other research, I found that these are two most interchangeable just because even though there's our stuff added like minerals for the club soda, it doesn't affect the taste profile all that much. It's barely noticeable, if at all. It's negligible. So the first part is 2 ounces of the Chee-nahr. So get that there. And I'm just gonna add some cubed ice into my shaker just to chill it out. Steve the Bartender did that. I think I will follow suit. So I'm not gonna go crazy with the ice for the shaker, just 3 cubes. That's just to chill it. So the first that we're gonna add is the Chee-nahr. We're doing 2 ounces of that. Actually, what I'm gonna do, move this guy over here. Seems like the smarter idea. Next, we're gonna do half an ounce of grapefruit juice. So I don't believe Steve the Bartender had that. Whew. Not a pretty pour by any means, but that's why I got that placemat there. Next, we're gonna do half an ounce of lemon juice. Fresh, obviously, is preferred in these recipes, but I'm just gonna go with this concentrate. All right. Next we're gonna do half ounce of simple syrup. So the soda water and the bitters don't go in the shaker. We're just going to do a very short shake. It doesn't have to be long at all. It's just to mix everything. Just like that. Not drawn out or anything. Okay. So let's put a crushed ice in the glass. Don't overdo it on this because you don't want to overflow it when you add the club soda or the soda water and other. You can always adjust it. So Steve, the bartender, says about 2/3. Honestly, I would do a little bit less than that. This can go in any glass you like. Just kind of using this rock glass is what the website Vine Pair suggested, and it's also what Steve the bartender uses. And I didn't put too much ice because you can always add more. So this is the part though. Take our mixed ingredients and we pour. All right. So it's a good thing we didn't overdo it on the ice because we still have the soda water, or club soda in this case, to add to it. Okay, so 2 ounces of the soda water, or club soda in this case. You see we're getting pretty full there, but we're okay. Next, 2 dashes of the bitters. Now, normally I don't bother with the garnishment and all that, but this is a mint julep type drink, and we have the mint right here, so why not? That's a first. And that's it. Oh, and we're gonna add our straw here. Yeah, there you go. The Cynar Julep. And we're back from making the Cynar Julep. Let's see how it tastes. And actually, before we do that, I should comment on the aroma. Yeah, it's just very light floral and mint scent. I'm gonna give that a solid 4. It's not a very strong and potent smell, but it's very good. It's very, like I said, floral and minty, and nothing else really that I can tell. Yeah, it's very light, inoffensive. Actually, it's what I can smell smells really nice. I wish it was stronger so I could give it a 5, but that's a good smell. The appearance, yeah, it seems fine. It kind of looks like a root beer kind of soda. Got a bit of a muddy quality, but it's fine. It doesn't remind me of anything offensive, so I give that a nice solid 4 as well. Probably the most important thing is the flavor. It's definitely a different experience drinking it through the straw versus just sipping it from the cup. Overall, I would recommend through the straw. It's a little bit more complex flavor profile. Just sipping from the cup directly, there really isn't much going on. It's barely tastes like anything. You smell a lot of the mint because if you have the garnish there, it's right there in your face. But when you sip it with the straw, you get something interesting and complex. You get this bit of fruity bitterness. There's probably a combination of the Chee-nahr and the grapefruit and that sourness. But after that, your palate gets cleansed really quick, and it's just a light floral taste. The hint of sweetness over the top. Yeah, I really like that. I'm gonna say that's a solid 4 for me as far as the flavor through the straw, which is how I'd recommend it. Just nothing really exciting is happening when you drink from the glass. yeah, it doesn't, there's a hint of bitterness and the smell of the mint. So I give that a 4 as long as we use the straw. And the mouthfeel is definitely improved over just drinking it straight. The real thing that really elevates is that, like I said, near the end when you drink it through the straw, it kind of, your palate gets cleansed through all the way down to your throat, and it's just this light floral and sweetness. And then it's gone, and it clears out any of the bitterness that was from the Chee-nahr and the grapefruit. Yeah, that's really good. I'll give that another solid 4 there for the mouthfeel. Now for the buzz factor. I don't know, it's because I've been sipping a little bit of the Chee-nahr from the first part, and then I've been sipping this, but it does seem stronger somehow, which is a little odd because, yeah, other than the Chee-nahr, there's nothing really adding any alcohol. Maybe it's the sugars from the simple syrup and all the other ingredients can interacting. I'm really not sensing too much of the lemon juice, but I think even though lemon, you think it's going to be citrusy, it's not really there, but I think that's what's causing that floral taste and smell. But there does seem to be, I know, something a little bit more potent in the cocktail mix than it is straight. But not crazy potent. I'm still going to just give that, let's see, I think I gave that a 2 last time. It just bumped up a little bit. I'll say just a 2.5 this time. So as a mix, we got a score of 3.7, which is actually lower than its straight score, but keep in mind, we reviewed the straight part, we also have another category of the packaging, and it doesn't get a benefit from that from the mix section review. So even though it's slightly actually lower, I would still say it's better in this julep mix than it is straight. And yeah, I'd recommend it that way. Great warm weather drink, I think. I mean, it's a julep. And yeah, that's going to be today's episode on the original Chee-nahr. Give a little bit more credit to Rino for his part. And yeah, I think, if memory serves me well, I think I might like the original one just a little bit more than the Cynar 70. Cynar 70, I remember giving it a pretty solid score and liking it overall. But just something about this one that's a little bit more appealing to me personally. If you have tried both, what do you like? Let me know in the comments, share, discuss among yourselves. But until the next episode, enjoy the spirit inside responsibly.